I think you also see people who maybe they have gotten to a good point with self-care and then they get into a relationship and then immediately begin to neglect that. Like now they have this like, okay, I hit the gym, I got a promotion, I'm eating healthy, I look great, but I'm doing this because I'm trying to like lure the next, like how I use lure, I'm a creep, but lure the next.
Lure my next partner is
Yes.
fine.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Menage-A-Pod, the hysterical comedy podcast about sex, dating, relationships, and everything in between. I'm TJ, and that's Jenna.
Hi, guys.
Absolute last person you would let keep track of your wallet. But every week, I trust her with my pod baby and my heart. What's up, G?
Thanks, man. Let me tell you something. I just got all of my credit cards today.
That's key.
Which is key, except for one said, this is already activated. It had like a sticker on the front. And it said, this is already activated. Feel free to use. And that feels wrong to me because anyone could have gotten that, as if my credit cards recently have been stolen enough.
Yeah, well, if you could make a habit of not getting your wallet stolen every like 3 to 6 weeks, that'd be great.
I know. I was saying to Rob, I was like, should we do like an over-under of how long this is going to take for me to get my fucking stuff stolen twice in 2 months?
Well, guys, now she has one of those sweet cell phone cases that allows her to put all of her cards in it. So
don't tell
just
people
steal
that. Now everyone's
going to
steal my shit. Whatever. Ask me out what else I did today.
What else did you do today?
I got Botox.
Really?
I did. Well, I got Botox and bangs, so fuck that. It's like kind of defeats the purpose, right?
Bangs
it's like,
and Botox.
Why did I do that? I could have just done one or the other. It didn't make any sense.
Bangs is like Botox for poor people. Come on.
Well, that was kind of the point. So what she did was I freaked out when I was in the office, if I'm being honest, because I was like, I don't want to look plastic. And she looked amazing. So I don't know why I said that. I was just have a lot of fear apparently about it. And I was like, so please just start in like this general area of like my frown line so I don't have the resting bitch face all the time. And then we'll move our way up into my real forehead when I decide to grow out the bangs. So that is that's where we are right now.
Okay, it's very strategic. I can appreciate your tactics there.
And apparently you can't tell right now because it takes like a week,
which
is weird to me. 2 weeks? It takes 2 weeks. That's weird to me.
Why is it weird?
Well, why does it take so long? It's like all of a sudden my feet. Yeah, I do, obviously. Have you met me?
I have, unfortunately for all of us.
I just kind of feel like it's a lot of money for me to not see something like that instantly.
Agreed.
Right?
But I mean, you're beautiful as is. So if you have to wait a week for a couple
buddy.
minimal, and honestly,
I know you can't see them because I have bangs now.
Friend to friend, you didn't even need it. Come on.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm glad you said that because I said this to Rob and he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited you're getting that done. Not like, you don't need to get that done, babe. And I was like, dude, that's so mean. He's like, well, we can look young forever together. And I was like, oh, what?
That's heartwarming.
Because he's younger than me. So I was like, that's so rude.
Awesome. Well, at least he didn't suggest you getting like a breast lift too.
Well,
see?
Are you trying to tell me something?
I'm not, but I'm just saying.
I feel like
you
my
said
boobs look fine for my age.
I mean, fantastic for your age. For 25, of course.
I know. They're so perky for 25.
All right,
Rude.
This is massively derailed right now, so why don't we jump into the episode?
Let's do it.
All right, so I know I say this every single week, and this week is no different from any other, but I am so super excited to have today's guest join us. How we found out about her, a couple of friends who've been on the podcast previously, specifically a friend of the pod, Paul Farivar. He is actually a friend of hers. She's been on his podcast. He's been on hers. So we heard how great she was and thought it would be a huge miss not to have her on. So with no further ado, our guest today is the host of the Jen Z podcast, as well as an esthetician and makeup artist, owner of Jen Z's beauty and wellness services, and holder of both her certification in nutrition and a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She says she loves being able to combine her passions of beauty, wellness, and Jiu-Jitsu all in one. And her mission is to empower, inspire, and motivate others to live a happier, healthier lifestyle. Nutrition, fitness, self-love, beauty, Reiki, goal setting, and positive living are key areas of focus with her clients. So, Jen Zanotti, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's so weird to hear somebody like talk about me as I'm used to being the host.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well,
funny.
We're glad that you're letting us kind of flip the script and you came and talked to us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you for having me.
I love it. I have a dumb question, actually.
There's
no dumb questions.
I know. That's what everyone says, but wait till you hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So is Gen Z like a play on words for like Generation Z? Is that a thing?
No.
Is Generation Z a thing? Is that a thing? I don't know. I'm in marketing.
That is a
I
thing,
should know.
I think,
Yeah, it sounded right. Yeah.
No, it's one of my good friends just started calling me Gen Z, and it stuck. He suggested like 12 years ago when I opened my business that I should call it Gen Z's Beauty Services. And I was like, great. And now literally everyone calls me Gen Z. They can't just say like Jennifer. It's Gen Z. Okay.
All right.
It's like Prince, but Gen Z.
I mean, Gen Z. So, hey. But I love it. I'm down with it. It's kind of created, been like the center of the brand.
How long has that brand been around?
Well, Gen Z's has been, I opened in 2007, October of 2007. So 12 years now. But I've been a makeup artist and esthetician for 18, which seems like forever.
Gosh.
18 years. That does not seem to check out.
Do you do Botox?
I do not.
Other than like you give it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I do not.
I was like,
I'm not certified for that.
I was like, I feel like
if I was like a medical esthetician under a doctor, I could do it in a doctor's office.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
but on my own without that.
Got it.
No, just
all right.
basic
Well, I felt like I might
esthetician.
have had a missed opportunity there. I'm glad to see that I didn't.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. You did not.
Okay, good.
You're all good. But it does take about 2 weeks.
It does?
To notice any
I don't really
difference.
get that. Like, why so long?
Immediate gratification. She's the worst, right?
Well, 2 weeks feels long. Like, give me 4 days and that's fine. But I want the wrinkles to go away like sooner than that.
I know they will, but it just, it kind of like, and I'm not, a pro on Botox, but it really does paralyze kind of the muscles. So it takes that time to kind of be at its full impact.
Yeah.
But I know people, and I think good people who implement and utilize Botox will start with a smaller amount first so that it's not overkill because if they put way too much in, then you're going to have that plastic effect.
Totally.
And that's not really what you want. So I think gradually, starting with a little bit, you can always go back. Usually they offer that you can come back if it's not enough.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the thing that freaks me out the most about the 2 week wait thing is that like it feels totally normal now because I just got it done. But then I feel like I'm going to wake up one day and I'm not going to be able to move my forehead and that's going to freak me out.
Well,
I'm going to feel paralyzed.
I think it'll be gradual. I think you'll be fine. I've never had it done
to move my face.
But like, I don't know. I mean, you only had a little bit.
Yeah, I only had it like right here in that little area
She's
between your eyebrows.
I don't know. You'll have to tell
eyebrows.
me how it feels though. Like
I will. Next time I see him,
capacity.
be like, I'm frowning, but you just can't tell because I can't move my face.
Really, you're doing a service for all of us, Jen, and we appreciate it.
Oh my gosh.
So I think that wonderful, logical, and well thought out answer there is a good example of why we wanted to have you come on today to talk about a really great topic. So this week, we're going to focus on self-care and how important that is and how it can bleed into having healthier relationships and what it means to practice self-care kind of in the framework of a relationship. Yeah, healthy relationships.
Yeah, weird. I don't know.
The things you read
about.
No,
I don't know. But
you read about
I hear
when
those
we research.
Yeah. When we talk to our therapist on the show, I hear about that. That's a real thing. I don't know.
I used to think that it wasn't, but currently I am in one, which is nice.
Yeah.
For a turn of events, that's a wonderful thing. So I really, I am a believer and I'm hopeful. It's great to know that having that faith that like true love does exist.
Yeah.
Wow, this is refreshing.
Yeah.
We
always usually have like a lot of like negative people on
very
here.
bitter about the experience.
So, I am divorced. I've been divorced almost 4 years. And it was, one of the most challenging and probably hardest decisions to make in my life. But, I was 29 when I got married and we were married almost 5 years, but together 9. And just two completely different people. I thought it was right for different reasons that now are not important to me. And, I wasn't happy for a long time. And someone who like promotes happiness and positivity, it was hard not having that for myself.
Right.
And, I kept it inside for a long time and tried to work on it. We went to therapy, all of that, just kind of in the short of things, but just made the decision. I was like, this, it's not fair to him. It's not fair to me. And, I think the hardest thing is it justification enough to leave if you're just, and I hate saying that, just not happy.
Yeah.
But there was no, physical abuse. He wasn't cheating on me. Like, maybe I'd kind of say verbal abuse sometimes. But I was just like, is that really a reason enough? to leave. And yes, it was. So, after that was probably one of the best decisions I've made in my life. And we still get along well now at this point.
Makes sense. Have a mature ending that it would be able to maintain a kind of civil and mature relationship in the aftermath of it.
Yeah, it was good. At first it was not, he was a little bit bitter about the situation. And I kind of just had to get out and leave. And, but our families know each other really well, and we're kind of from the same area. And I don't know. I feel like he was like a child of mine in a past life. Is that going to sound kind of crazy?
No, it's not.
But that's like how I felt. Like I loved him like a brother, which is why I did not.
Yeah, I think if you
as a
get to that point, it's time to call it quits.
Had this exact conversation today with someone very close to me, and she's going through a divorce, and it's getting messy like they can, right? I've been divorced. TJ's been divorced. We get it.
It's in the water.
It's in the water here in
Everybody's doing
Chicago.
Everyone's doing it. Come on.
But we had the same conversation of like, what happens when you're just not happy, right? You just kind of, it makes me rethink the whole idea of marriage, to be perfectly honest. And she was saying the same thing. And it's funny because she and I are very different in this way. Like I'm very non-conventional. I actually didn't necessarily want to get married in the first place. My ex-husband was very traditional. So we just went along with it, and I was happy to do it. But it wasn't necessarily my first choice. And my friend is very, like, she's the opposite. So I was really surprised to hear her say, like, I will never get married. I don't know if I ever want to get married again. I don't know why people do that. But we had this whole conversation about, like, I don't know, how are you with someone for so long and not change and not grow apart? And then at one point she said to me, I just don't understand. It was his decision. And she was like, I just don't understand. Like, I don't remember a point where things just went so horribly wrong. And I was like, they don't have to. Sometimes people just aren't happy. And if they're not happy, then you just have to make the decision to like do what makes you happy. And unfortunately, sometimes that's not together.
Right. And I think we want to make everyone else happy all the time.
Yeah.
And we put our own happiness aside. But then, I think the point where I was really like, I just can't do this anymore was that how is me living a lie going to make him happy?
Totally.
Right.
It's not. Like, that's going to just hurt him in the long run. And that's when I'm like, okay, thinking that me just putting on the happy face, everything would be okay for all of us.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's going to just hurt even more later on. And, I think that's a big part of self-care also, is taking care of ourselves and needing to be happy and needing to have a partner or not. Like, I thought after I got divorced, I would just be on my own because I wanted to, I was the queen of avoidance, and I threw myself into achieving a lot of goals and things that were important to my life. And I was in a place of fulfillment with my family, my business, jiu-jitsu, all of these things that I had done and accomplished and was still striving for. And that made me happy.
Yeah.
So I didn't necessarily need to have a partner. Having a partner, if I found them in life, once again, would be amazing. And now after a year, it is, and it was all kind of magical, not to sound kind of corny, but it really was. But I think sometimes people will jump into other relationships or need to be with people thinking that that's going to make them happy.
Right.
Totally.
And that's not the case.
Yep.
So you had mentioned, you had said about when you weren't happy and weren't feeling content, and that was sort of discentering because that's so much a part of your brand. So how did you get into like wellness services in that kind of realm?
It was really selfishly for my own journey. When I first opened my business, I started to take an interest in my own health because at that point I was 25 and I was going out and, drinking and partying, and I had gotten out of a bad relationship. My boyfriend was cheating on me at the time, and it was just stressful, depressing. And one of my friends, one of my best friends, Yvonne, he has muscular dystrophy. He's the most positive person ever. He's in a wheelchair. He would go to the gym every morning and work out. And he's like, Jen, this is not the life you should be living right now. And he really helped kind of push me to open my business and all that stuff. And he's like, you need to come to the gym and work out with me. I was about 235 pounds.
My
at
goodness.
that point.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I've always been like taller and like bigger boned, like bigger built. I have a bigger frame all my life, but I was never like heavy. And at that point I was just, kind of making a lot of the wrong health choices. And he's like, if I'm not depressed, you can't be.
Yeah.
And that comment right there completely changed everything for me.
Totally.
So I started working out. I started, researching just what would work for me, like eating wise and just, not drinking as much and not going out and eating fast food.
Yeah.
I just made it a priority for myself. And then, before I had gotten married, I probably lost about 60 pounds or 40 pounds on my own, just through working out at home and in the gym and just cleaning up my diet. And I felt amazing. And then after I got married is when I want to say I got married in 2011, 2012 is when I started jiu-jitsu. And then that just took it to a whole other level. So it was very important to me. I saw what it did for my health and my well-being. And I wanted to be able to kind of implement that with my clients. So I got into a lot of lifestyle coaching and got my nutrition certification. And just then with jiu-jitsu, it was just like a very unique blend of everything.
Well, that sounds great. Yeah. And I mean, what a fantastic experience. I mean, obviously when you're going through it, not fantastic. So maybe a bad word choice, but for the end goal of doing this and using your experiences, really leveraging that to help people and share that. I mean, you couldn't have a better cross section of what happened, I think.
Well, people can relate to you, so much better when you've experienced it versus if I had never gone through that. Like, I know that it can be challenging, but like I said, it is simple to eat healthier and implement healthier things into your life. And I know that because I've experienced it. We can all make things habits. And a lot of times I think it's just really more of a mental block. And so I really enjoy helping people with that and kind of talking through that and finding out what's really the issue here. And a lot of times it's, and I don't want to say life is rainbows and, balloons and happiness like all the time, but there are ups and downs and you have to embrace all of that together. But usually there's something that we're not happy about at the core that's causing us to make these decisions.
Yeah. How do you figure out what that is?
A lot of times, I have these empowerment sessions where we kind of just talk through what the person's goals are. And usually in that, other things will kind of come out in talking. People have always, for some reason, felt comfortable talking to me about things. And I like to say I'm a good listener. So, well, thank you so much. But also, in Reiki sessions too, they become, I have a good friend of mine, Dr. John Duffy. He's a therapist and psychologist. And he's like, well, you basically are like a therapist, but it's just like I say it's like a spiritual therapy session.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm very realistic about it because a lot of people aren't open to that necessarily, but it is very much having time to yourself and having an hour of relaxation. And, when we can kind of shift some of the energy and see what's going on, a lot of things come out emotionally.
It's like a discovery
So it's a
session.
great release. Yes, exactly.
So I think talking back to your experience where you said now you're in this fulfilling, wonderful relationship that's very storybook and we're all super excited for you. I'm not jealous at all. But I think that speaks to this, that you spent so much time focusing on self-care and being in the proper mindset. And then you end up finding this relationship. And that sort of leads into this. I found a quote that I thought was pretty impactful and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on it. Self-care is a mindset, looking after yourself the way you would look after someone you love. So to me, that seems like that really is a logical kind of bond between self-care and being in a relationship. What do you think about that?
Well, I think usually we are the most cruel to ourselves.
Totally.
Absolutely.
And it's like, would you ever say the things that you say to yourself to somebody else? No.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe.
I would say him to TJ, but whatever.
But typically, it's like we're our own worst enemies.
Right.
And it's, the negative self-talk and just we're so down on ourselves. And we put ourselves out there to take care of everyone else in our lives. And it's like, why can't we show ourselves that same love and attention and affection? Like,
right.
we're just so horrible. And I don't always know the answer to that. But I think, if we want something to happen or change in our lives, we can't rely on other people to do it.
Yeah.
We have to make that choice ourselves. So we need to be a little kinder to ourselves to be able to do that and support each other, be our own cheerleaders. And that's where, I like to come in to be able to support and empower and offer guidance to people to almost be an advocate for themselves. Not to just do it for them, but to be there and kind of, be that person they can always turn to or guide them along.
Right.
But positive self-talk is a real thing. And I know you guys on the last episode with Drew, I listened to that on the way here.
Yeah.
We're talking about that. And it's legit.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I feel like I should do it more often. And I just don't. Because by nature, I'm just like a sarcastically annoying person. I feel like so it's hard. Also, if I'm going to be very honest, I love you, Mom. She doesn't listen because she thinks I swear too much. So she's not here.
I love that. I'm like, I love that you guys can swear on here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't swear on my podcast.
We mark ours explicit.
Yes. But I love that. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But we read the room. I wasn't going to go too heavy because you seem very sweet. So.
Oh, but listen, no, I have my days. Please. Okay. Sometimes nothing feels better than just being able to swear. Come on now.
It can be incredible, quite cathartic.
There you go.
I feel like a lot of the way that we view ourselves comes from childhood. Well, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, but a lot of the things that I see in myself are things that have been told to me along my life, right? Like more like, and from important people. So like if somebody I didn't know were to say like something rude, I'd be like, go fuck yourself. I don't even know you.
Yeah.
But my mother, like growing up, was very critical. She's like this Italian woman, you can imagine. She's very critical.
Italian fam.
Yeah. And kind of how and she doesn't even realize she does it. She doesn't even like when it comes out of her mouth, like she doesn't mean it in like this mean way. I don't think, hopefully, but it's just sort of like how she was raised. And so it's like this behavior, that pattern that continues. So I feel like sometimes the negative human in me, like the voice I hear is my mom sometimes from childhood. And it's like, how do you shake something like that? Like, how do you become and turn that around and become positive when you have this, voice in your head from like, years of hearing it from whoever it may be, someone important in your life, whether it's a spouse or a parent or whomever.
Well, that's what I experienced a lot. I have my whole family's Italian and they're very positive and loving and supportive, which is great. I'm grateful for that. I'm like, knock on wood. But, my ex-husband also very Italian family, but a little harder, like emotionally.
Right.
And we're very like open about stuff and very family all the time.
Yeah.
And, his parents were divorced and it just, he had some addiction issues in the past and just a lot, a little bit of a different upbringing. Wonderful people, but just different. And a lot of times I struggled with how he made me feel of, myself. I felt like a failure more so financially because I was self-employed and, an entrepreneur, owned my own business. And that still sometimes carries over. And
even though you're a badass.
Well, thank you for that.
Okay.
But I have my, everybody has their things,
right.
And talking about it, I think is the best thing, to be open, and communicate. But, and my boyfriend Jay is going to be like, don't say, he does not like when I use the word failure. He's like, let's change that tape, which is great. Yes.
Is he a therapist?
He's amazing.
Because like,
no, he's a writer and a jiu-jitsu
a
practitioner too.
Okay.
So he owns his own jiu-jitsu
now
school.
That makes sense. Okay.
It's great having that partner to talk about these things. Eventually I have to be like, who is this person to say that about me or make me feel a certain way? And usually when people do it, and it may not be malicious, but they have their own issues.
Right.
So I'm kind of compassionate towards that and I flip it the other way. Like they're really not doing this to make me feel bad. Like, and detachment is one of my favorite words and my favorite things to kind of practice and implement in life. And it's not, lacking emotion or being insensitive, but it's really stepping away from a situation and looking at it from a different perspective, kind of watching it go by versus being in it. But, sometimes people just have different viewpoints, or it's not necessarily something that has to do with you. It's something that they're going through. So they can't share that perspective or see it. And it's just not intentional. It doesn't mean it's okay. But, you know, when I kind of would flip that and be like, well, who are you? Like, I've done this, or that, like, not to have to prove yourself, but in your mind, you have to kind of build up that confidence and that wall where it's like, okay, I know what you're saying, but you know, it goes in one ear, out the other.
Yeah. I've learned boundaries. That's my not new within like the last couple of years of therapy.
Well, I think boundaries, that's a good example of demonstrating self-care, right? I mean, having healthy boundaries is like 1A after drinking water, right?
Right, exactly. There you go. But it is a little bit of that detachment and putting things kind of in a box or seeing it, you know, and I think communicating too is key, and just saying like, listen, this is how I'm feeling when you say these certain things. It makes me feel a certain way, and we just can't go there. Like this is, you know, and establishing that and communicating. Because I think when we kind of don't address a topic and just let it brew and stir in our minds, it becomes so much bigger.
Yeah. Can I bring you home with me for Christmas so you can tell that to my mother?
Sure.
Okay, great. She lives in Florida, so at least we can enjoy the beach and stuff. It'll be great. It'll be like a vacation for everybody.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. I love it.
So hearing you talk about that detachment and sort of stepping back to see things from a different perspective, I think that makes a lot of sense, because, you know, when you're talking about self-care and how that plays into being in a relationship, I think taking care of your own emotions in itself makes less demands on that other person, because you said earlier, we talked about a lot of people go into relationships not feeling whole, not feeling fulfilled, and they want something, that relationship, to fill that for them. And if you already have it, then you're making less demands on them, which makes more time to just kind of enjoy the relationship, learn about each other, grow as human beings together.
Yes. That's, you know, I just think it's really hard when somebody's seeking a person to help fix their problems.
Yeah.
And, you know, I used to tend to want to be a fixer, like a savior, you know, that just kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, we can't force change upon somebody, and that's not always fair to do, you know, either. Somebody's a certain way because of whatever reason, and, you know, changing or evolving together is one thing, but, you know, I feel like you really need to love yourself and spend that time, even if it means being alone. Like, you can support yourself and surround yourself with friends, family, whoever. Go and like start doing new activities or things that you may not have done before, just to kind of have that culture of people around you. But to really try and get into a relationship, to rely on that person to fix you, is a lot of pressure. And we have so many other useful tools, like going to therapy. I think therapy is one of the most amazing things.
Everyone should go.
I agree.
Everyone should go to therapy. And I even, on my podcast, I had my therapist that helped through the divorce. I was like,
really?
Oh, yeah. I had her on, and I was like, this is amazing. We're going to talk about this now. It was like 3 years later, but it was awesome. And I needed that to be able to say the word divorce in the room. Like, I scheduled the session just for that purpose. But, you know, using those things as tools. And I really tell people journaling is a huge thing. And I'm a huge advocate for that. And I know it sounds kind of corny, or like, well, I don't want to sit and write. I don't have time to do that. But even just putting down your emotions on a piece of paper, if it's 3 words, whatever it might be, however you're feeling, and doing it consistently, like at the end of the day or at the beginning of each day, that's allowing you to kind of take whatever's in your mind and release it and put it down on paper, but it's a physical act. So even if you feel like you can't talk to somebody about it, or you're holding on to something and you don't want to take it out on your partner or whatever it may be that you're going through, you need a way to be able to release those emotions. And those fears or those struggles that you're going through. But I really think it's important to bring that back and be like, what do I need? What do I need to work on right now? Or what do I need to be happy? Or what outlet can I look for? Because just relying on another person is not going to make that happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you also see people who maybe they have gotten to a good point with self-care, and then they get into a relationship and then immediately begin to neglect that. Like now they have this like, okay, I hit the gym, I got a promotion, I'm eating healthy, I look great, but I'm doing this because I'm trying to like lure the next
Right.
Like how I use lure, I'm a creep. But lure
I mean,
the next
Lure my next
fine.
partner is.
It's fine.
and then the minute you're in that relationship, I mean, obviously a lot of people, you get comfortable, you fall into routines, but I think that that's almost epidemic level, the amount of people who do that. What do you think, Jenna?
I know I've fallen victim to that. It's really easy. I, as a person though, am, like you said, I like to take care of people. I like to fix things. So it's sort of like when I'm in a relationship, I typically put somebody else first before my needs.
I don't believe that for 1 second.
Evident in my marriage. Are you kidding? I've learned how to kind of balance that. And what's really great about my boyfriend currently is I find is your boyfriend divorced as well by chance?
Yes.
Okay.
Just recently.
So I have this new
finalized.
theory where I think divorced when
this is
dating
interesting.
Let's
hear
dating
it.
in my 20s, everyone, like, no one had been married yet, right? So
of course.
now everyone's been divorced. So I feel like through divorce, typically, unless you are like an
A
idiot,
sociopath?
yeah, you don't learn, like, you are learning things from that, right?
Absolutely.
So for me, it's really important to meet someone who has already been married, because I find that they also then give me back the things that I need, right? So there's more of a balance. So then I can stop being that caretaker for somebody else.
Yes.
And they can start to kind of meet me in the middle, and we sort of take care of each other, which is nice. And I can't say that about everybody who's been married. I am totally generalizing. Anyone who listens to the show knows I love to do that. But I find, I mean, that makes logical sense to me, right? Like, you can kind of meet somewhere in the middle.
I think you usually know also what you want and what you don't want.
Totally.
I mean, that's the biggest learning lesson from that. So having, gone through that, you can relate to the experience and know. I think people just realize, like, oh yeah, this is what I want. Oh no, I'm staying away from that, or I'm not
100%.
settling again, or whatever it may be for this relationship. Like, I even said, I'm like, I'd rather be alone unless I somehow find the icing on my cake.
Sure.
I'm going to make that happiness for myself and go after everything I want, because I don't need somebody else bringing me down just to be with someone.
Totally.
Until I find actually a true partner, that is the icing.
Right.
And, but a lot of people think that self-care is selfish. And I had written a blog about this a long time ago, but it's like, is that a selfish thing? A lot of times people will say, oh, you're doing this for yourself, or you're doing that, like, you're just being selfish, and kind of put you down, because they might not. That's where I say, turn it around. That person is kind of, deflecting and putting their, crap on you, basically, because they might be looking or searching for something.
Totally.
And, it could be very manipulative and all of that, but it's not selfish. It is not selfish to do something for yourself. Selfish would be if you were never focusing or helping other people, or just very much focused on you 1,000% of the time. But to do things, to take an hour a day out for yourself for, healthy habits, or just being able to have that alone time, or, give yourself that rest and care that you need, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the rest and care thing, because I've been doing this a lot lately, and it makes me feel like a shitty friend. But I find that I overcommit a lot to a lot of things, right? So I have my day job, which is very demanding. Then we have the podcast, and then I have friends, and then I have a boyfriend, right? So it's like you're kind of, and my boyfriend's long distance, so it makes
Mine
it a little.
too.
Oh, okay. Where's yours?
Get a room, guys.
DC.
Come on.
Stop! Seriously, mine's in Virginia.
Oh my God. He's in Maryland,
So funny.
but Tacoma
Maryland
Park.
is where I'm from. Oh, that's so funny. Frederick,
gosh.
Maryland. So
That
it's
is
like
so
a weird small
funny.
town. Anyway, that's so funny. Yeah. So I mean, it's an easy trip, right? And you can do it pretty often if you have to. It's like
His
an hour
family's
and a
he's a
half.
Chicago guy. So
Oh, he
just putting
is.
that out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, it's nice because I can compartmentalize, right? Like when I see him, right? But people who are here, like my friends, my job, all the other things that need my attention here, family, it becomes a little overwhelming, and I find that I spread myself too thin. And I was online, and there's this like a meme that floats around that basically says like something like, it's okay to cancel those plans. Like it's okay to say no, or it's not the saying no part I have a problem with. It's the canceling of the plans thing that I do more than I probably should. But I do it in like a self-preservation kind of thing, because like when I commit to those plans, I'm maybe not as busy. And then that week can just totally get away from me and I'm exhausted. And so like by the end of the week, like sometimes I just don't want to do anything on a Friday. And I'm very extroverted. I have to be. It's part of my job. But I don't recharge like that. So I need to sometimes just have time to myself.
You need your alone time.
Yes. And that is self-care. And so I think people have a problem with saying no to things and me specifically, I feel bad like canceling a plan I have. But at the end of the day, I always feel like I can breathe a little bit better when I do, because then I feel recharged the next day and I can make up for it. Because the reality is like, yes, I can go to dinner with my friend, but I'm going to be so boring because I'm going to be so tired. I'm not going to be in it, you know?
Right. And listen, one of my favorite quotes, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Like it is okay. And you don't have to justify. I think we always think we have to justify.
I feel like, totally.
Absolutely. But, you know, a friend of mine and I joke when I say this that we're co-writing a book. I mean, it'll happen one day, but it's called Handle Your Hustle. Oh. And, you know, cause I have like 5,000,001 things going on, but I tell people, I'm like, it's just organizing your time, cause balance is huge.
Yes.
And I think, you know, people strive, I had written a post the other day, like they strive for perfection. And I don't always agree that, you know, I don't think perfection is a good thing to strive for, but I strive for balance. And it's like getting more balance in your life and listening to your body and what you need. And I think when you're really good at scheduling, we schedule everything else, but it's like schedule that downtime. Yeah. Schedule that rest. Schedule that weekend away for yourself or whoever. Yeah. Schedule that meditation time, even if it's 5 minutes. 5 minutes to just sit and turn everything off. Like get away from the phones, get away from all technology. And just sit or go take a walk outside for 10 minutes, something. But we can schedule that in. And I think we need to. We're in that day and age where we have to plan everything. Like plan your self-care time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people, you get to the end of relationships, and how many relationships do you see where people are like, oh, you know, we needed space. And what starts off as needing space ends up being an end of the relationship. So if you focus on balance and find the balance between being separate and being together, it's kind of essential for a healthy relationship. And if you are proactive about doing that in the beginning, then it's not, I mean, it may still be the thing that ends your relationship, but it may not be. So being a little proactive could definitely be helpful for that, right?
Absolutely. And something funny with that though is spending, you know, we need that time apart and time together. But, and this could be because, you know, Jay lives, you know, 700 miles away, but, we actually like each other. Yes. And it's funny.
It's because like he's far away. Trust me on that one. I've done the research.
But it's like, you know, we love each other. We're in love. But, you know, he's always like, it just blows my mind. Like, you actually like me. Because, and as silly as that sounds, it's true. Like, and when we're together, it's so easy. And relationships take work. But listen, they should not be that hard.
No, they shouldn't.
They really shouldn't. Right. I think when you are with the right person, like you should want to enjoy hanging out together and spending time together and like that person.
Wait, you're supposed to enjoy the time you spend with the people you're in a relationship with?
It's supposed to be easy.
I've been doing it wrong this whole time.
I'm just saying.
Well, you know,
sorry, that is actually a true statement. And I think people, I think when I was younger, I didn't really understand that. But I think it took me, you know, lots of dating, a divorce to kind of figure out what that means. And I dated a lot of people after my divorce on and off for a while, and things were just really hard. And then I met my current boyfriend, and it's so easy, which is weird because he doesn't even live here. So why is that easy? You give me an extra hurdle of like this distance, and yet it's still the easiest thing ever. Right. And it's like, And I can spin out sometimes. Like if I'm super stressed and I'm having a shitty day, I can just pick a fight, and he can just kind of like, he just like throws water on the fire. He's like, this isn't a big deal. Let's talk about it. And it's fine. And he can handle me. Right. And I think that honestly, I think I can be a handful sometimes. So, you know, I just think you're right. Like when you meet someone, it should just be easy. If it's someone who compliments you, right?
Right.
And if it's healthy and all those good things that are really hard to find.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, Jen, you had talked earlier, pre-interview and then currently while we've been speaking, you made a comment about it's easy to eat better and it's easy to do some of these things. But then you also talked about, writing a journal and how certain things, come to a routine of self-care.
Yes.
And, I think the way I perceive it is that it's not technically easy, but once you commit to that routine and sort of make it a practice of being proactive about self-care, that it becomes natural. Would you say that that's more accurate?
I would. Yeah. The word easy, some people may not like. I know sometimes I don't like hearing it with certain things. But I think more so in the sense that we get a little overwhelmed where we feel like we have to make all these changes at once.
Right.
So I think that's where people find it difficult.
Sure.
And it's hard. But what I'll do with a lot of my clients too is have them write down kind of just, a daily log of all the food they're eating. Even before working together for like the first week, I don't want them to change a thing. And I want to say, I'm like, just, don't worry. I'm not judging you. Like, don't worry. Just write everything down. And then looking at what that person's doing and making small changes.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not going to go in and take everything away. But I think when you do that, there are things that are easier that we don't realize that like, oh, I can just take this out, or I can start, using like stevia instead of real sugar, or, whatever it could be that just popped in my mind. But it's like, I can take, soda out and, bring like green tea in, unsweetened green tea, making little habits and little changes, adding a little more protein in instead of just a bowl full of carbs, small things. It's like, let's not change everything at once.
Yeah.
But when you start doing that, it's like, oh, okay, I've got this. Like, that's so much easier than I thought. Great. Now let's add in another layer of that and another layer. And then soon enough, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is what I'm doing. This is great, And it's not like you can never have that thing you're so worried about that you can't have again in your life. Like, of course, there's moments, there's traditions, there's
cheat
days, of course. But I like to say more so cheat meals.
Yeah.
Because,
like an 80-20 rule.
Right.
That's
when you go back, it takes about like 3 to 4 meals, healthy meals, to get back basically like what you did in that cheat meal. Does that make sense? So to kind of get you back on track.
In terms of like a habit, or in terms of
so if you have like Saturday
body.
night, you're gonna of like your body, you're back kind of into that routine. So you don't have to. I think mentally we think, oh my gosh, Saturday night I'm going out, I'm having like pasta and drinks and whatever, and I'm just gonna. I might as well just binge the whole weekend. Or we'll be like, I'm not going to eat all day Saturday because I'm going to have that meal Saturday night. And it's like, our body doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't know that you're about to have all this food, like coming in and you're getting this fuel.
Totally.
And vice versa. Like, we don't need to just ruin the whole weekend and have a whole other splurge. It's like, just get back to your normal eating.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine. The metabolism will even out. Everything's going to kind of get back in sync.
Can I ask you a nutrition question that I feel like I'm probably not the only girl to ask this question?
Yeah.
But I noticed this when I was wedding dieting, and we had talked a little bit about this. I cut out all like gluten, all dairy, right? All that kind of stuff, which actually was really good for me because I felt good when I cut it out. So it wasn't just necessarily like a diet thing. It was more of like I could tell that it made me sluggish and I just didn't like the way I felt after I ate it. I consciously recognized the behavior, right? So here's my question. I made all of these crazy changes and I didn't see a difference at all for like 3 months. And I was like, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden it was like overnight I woke up and it was like gone, like all the weight was gone. It was crazy. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, it's been 3 months and I haven't seen a thing. And then all of a sudden overnight, right? Meanwhile, my fiance at the time, who was always in like really great shape, so it didn't matter, jerk. Like, he kind of like rejiggered his diet and we started working out together and all these things. And it was like immediate for him. And I'm sure some of that has to do with testosterone, but like, what the fuck? Why did it take so long?
Just start taking testosterone.
But the thing is,
well, kind of. That's what I wanted to do.
Well, how long does it take though for us to like form those unhealthy habits and become unhealthy, and maybe the weight goes up.
Sure.
Like things can't happen overnight.
Sure.
And there are plateaus, and females, like hormones are a real thing.
It's so not fair.
Our weight can fluctuate, you know, for no reason, really. And that's legitimate. Talk about every time I would go, this just popped in my mind when I would go and compete and make sure I'd have to be on weight, and like you add travel to that, and then you add like also having your period when you have to compete. It's like, oh great. Like, and I really need to be like a certain number on the scale. I think it's kind of sticking with that. I like how you said though, you felt better, because a lot of times people are just looking at the number on the scale, and I really want people to throw the scale away. Yeah. Because that, like I said, can fluctuate for any reason.
So I shouldn't be weighing myself twice a day.
No, absolutely not. Unless you are like in a competitive sport, or like where you have to know like if you're making weight or not, which those aren't, you know, there's healthier ways to go about that stuff. But you get so in your head about this number, and it's like, it can change. If you're like lifting a lot, you can weigh more than you did when you weren't, you know, so there's a lot of different factors, and it depends what goals you're looking for. But, you know, I was going to ask you, why did you stop eating gluten and dairy?
So I originally did it for a diet. And then I started to notice that I felt better. So I just continued to do it. And I still,
but do you mean like what prompted that choice in particular?
The wedding. Right. Getting into a wedding.
No, just the gluten and dairy. Because so many people, I think, and this is what they will just jump onto things because of fads, and they'll be like, oh, I'm just not going to eat gluten anymore, you know, or I'm not going to eat dairy because that's just a diet that I heard of.
I saw a terrible documentary on the dairy thing, which is what made me stop eating it.
Okay, well, that's
like
good.
What it does to your insides.
But even, you know, people too will just like drastically cut things out because they heard that it worked for somebody. And let me tell you, the one thing is everybody's very individual. Yeah. One thing is not going to work for every single person. Everybody has different sensitivities. And it's like, if you truly are like celiac, or, you know, I have FODMAP sensitivity where I am sensitive to gluten, and that's a whole other conversation.
I just fell in love with you right
now.
No, when you're done. Oh my goodness.
That is a whole other, sensitivities are real, but yes, I can eat dairy or gluten. I just know what I'm going to feel like the next few days. I'm going to feel like, you know, I've blown up, but I'm not going to have an allergic reaction to it.
Totally.
Okay. But that's the thing. I think it's really paying attention to how do certain foods make you feel? Because a lot of times I think most people have sensitivities, and they just think that
that's the way you're supposed to feel.
That's how you're supposed to feel.
Exactly,
and it's like,
how I was.
No. And that's why I like people to journal. And then it's like, how does this make you feel afterwards? Yeah. Do you feel like you have indigestion? Do you feel like you're bloated? Do you feel like you're gassy? Like, what are you going through? And some people are totally fine. Like, they can eat dairy all day long and it's no problem. Great. But others can't.
It's like the guy who eats 3 milkshakes and he's like, I'm lactose tolerant. Those 3 milkshakes made me feel like shit.
But, you know, so I think it comes down to us focusing a little bit more on how we're feeling. Yeah. And in those 3 months, maybe you didn't see like the number change or clothes fitting better. But were you sleeping better? Did you feel healthier? Like, did you have more energy? Were you happier? It's paying attention to that stuff. And that's what I want people to realize. Because
then the rest follows.
Right.
And eventually it fall off.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay,
it just was frustrating because as a woman, it took so long. And then I looked at my fiance and it was like just dropping, like no big deal. And I was like, you fucking.
Yeah, men are different.
I should have known then this was not meant to be.
There you go. But
so this is,
and we can hold on to emotions and stress. Stress and like emotional baggage will prevent you from losing weight.
Oh, absolutely. The cortisol from that.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But you got to just keep going through and it will come off.
Yeah.
And you're doing the right things.
Slight derail, but back to the FODMAPs. So I am a fighter for truth. I'm annoyed by nothing more than people saying things that are like easily researched and proven wrong. And so the craze around gluten, when you were asking Jenna why she targeted gluten and dairy, I know so many people who just magically one day became allergic to gluten. And I was like determined to figure out if this was real or not. And in doing that, I found out about FODMAPs and the FODMAP elimination diet, which is, Jenna, something that it's in a lot of things that also have gluten. So people frequently mistake a sensitivity to that, to gluten. And I know this has nothing to do with self-care and nothing to do with the episode, but I feel so vindicated
feeling
right now.
like crap. Yeah. No, but listen, sister and brother-in-law are in the restaurant industry, and sometimes, and I love all you people that like, I don't like the excuse of everybody being like, oh, I can't have gluten. Like, I don't like being one of these people.
Right.
I'm just saying that and putting that out there.
I can have
but
it,
there are people with legitimate, allergies and sensitivities. But it's like, everybody and their mother is all of a sudden like, oh, I can't have this or I can't have that. And it's because, somebody lost weight from not eating gluten or dairy, or, somebody's vegetarian now or vegan, and they're going to go on a vegan diet because they just want to lose weight. And it's like, well, let me tell you, that doesn't automatically make you healthy.
Right.
Let's put that out there.
I had actually read something that that it's like less than 3% of the population, or it's a very like minimal percentage of the population that actually has any level of gluten sensitivity. And yet in last year, 62% of people claimed to have purchased a gluten-free product at some time because it's just this fad that everyone goes crazy for.
Well, is it? I mean, the thing is doesn't your body sometimes break it down better when it doesn't have gluten in it? Like, it may not be, you don't have to have an allergy necessarily to not want to eat it. Like for me, I don't have an allergy for it, but it also, something about when I eat gluten, actually, it's worse for me, and then we can get off the subject, is the combination of both. So dairy and
I'm with you.
Together.
Like pizza, so forget about it.
Or like
Which is
cheese
a shame.
or like cheese
I know.
Or like cheese and crackers. Like I can't do both together, but I can do them separately and I feel fine. But together, the combination is like the worst thing for me ever.
And so yourself.
Totally. And it's not necessarily an allergy. It's just like the way I feel.
Well, you don't want to feel like that.
And I don't want to feel like that. Yeah. Right.
So that's self-care right there.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, listen, I think I'm better at it than
I think I am.
To how you feel is the number one thing. Not because the computer or the internet tells you you should feel this way, or, so-and-so's doing this, and the comparison game is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
That we didn't
that feels
kind of talk about, but that's unhealthy and we should not do in a self-care state. But but you have to pay attention how you're feeling and start eliminating not every single thing, but maybe like, try not eating gluten for a little bit and see how you feel.
Yeah.
Oh, you feel better? Okay, great. But I still think carbs are necessary and good starches. And, you can have quinoa, sweet potatoes. I eat like a potato a day.
I would still eat sweet potatoes.
Potato a day keeps the doctor away. That's what they say,
there
right?
you go.
I think I might have mixed that up.
Well, I mean, speaking of elimination, the same could be said about dating, right? It doesn't just have to deal with food for like self-help and eliminating what makes you like the best part. I think I hated is a strong word. I was not a huge fan of dating. Like, I did it a lot, but I just didn't love it. The best parts were the parts where I took the break. So it was like eliminating that stress where I was like, there's too much going on. I need a minute to just breathe. And
to be on your own.
Cut it out. Yeah. Cut it out like I did the dairy. And I was like, forget you men for a minute. And then, and
that's
eventually
when
I would
happens,
get back on. Right,
it's like, oh my God, because you're not focusing on it.
Yeah, totally.
I was like so opposite when I was in my younger days. I feel like I was like, ooh, let's be with whoever, and whatever. And I experienced that, in my 20s. Like, it was great. I don't regret it. But then, like, once I was divorced, I was super protective of myself. And I would I did not want to, I'm not a dating apps person. I'm like, I'm old school, like old fashioned. I need to just like meet someone and I'll know. I'm a people person and I need that like connection. Like, I'll either feel it or not. But I was just so not about it and protective of, I think, like everything I had accomplished and who I was and the things that I wanted to do. I didn't want someone to take that away from me.
Yeah.
So then of course, meeting someone who we have a lot of the same passions, that
Jay,
works.
He's the best.
Jay, he's the best. He's the best. But, I think it's important to eliminate a lot of the negative people in your life too.
100%.
I've actually been
so
making.
why are you still around, TJ?
Because I haven't eliminated you yet.
Oh, is that why?
See that quick turn, guys? That's why they pay me the big bucks. So Jen just made a bunch of fantastic points there, and there's a couple things that I really wanted to ask you really quickly before we get into the wrap up. You mentioned that you're not a dating app fan. My personal opinion, as someone who is absolutely a fan of them, is
maybe too much of a fan, some would say.
Just because I have like withered hands and I can't like unswipe my swipe fingers, that doesn't mean anything. I promise.
No.
But I guess since this is an episode about self-care, both within the confines of relationship and out, I would argue, and tell me if you're on the same page here, that sometimes when you're dating and you're actively pursuing, me being a guy who loves the apps, it's self-care to kind of remove yourself from that. Take a little break. What do you think?
Yeah,
Breathe.
absolutely. I think we get into it can be fun, but it's also that like technology, like, I don't know. I think just always being kind of in your phone and focused on something.
Right.
It's good to like step
Look
out,
up.
look up. Yes. Like a breath of fresh air, like just to kind of rejuvenate a little bit and step away for a minute. And then you can come back and kind of look at something with like fresh eyes. But it's, the apps, I know so many people have met and utilize them and love them.
Jen and I met on Bumble.
I mean,
We did. Yeah.
oh
we
my
did.
gosh, look
Isn't
at
that funny?
That
I
is funny. Funny side note though, when I first downloaded the app, my sister's like, "Oh, you should," she's a little bit younger than me.
What was your app of choice? I have to ask.
It was Bumble.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
And the first person that pops up was my cousin. I was like, I can't do
Oh
this.
no, that's so awkward.
I'm like, no. I'm like,
That's hysterical.
Sonia, to my sister, I'm like, which way am I supposed to swipe so it's not him?
I've
Because that would just be so awkward.
I've seen relatives, coworkers,
You have? I very
Oh my
rarely
gosh.
see people unless they're like friends of mine. Never coworkers or anything. Well, I guess all my coworkers are in LA. So
I've met
so
like
funny.
I've seen coworkers pop up in my like perspective
Yeah,
matches.
yeah.
And I'm just like, oh no.
You're like,
this
oh,
is
no.
That's a hard left swipe for sure.
But I think it's good to like get out of your comfort zone and I can't talk comfort zone and try something new, like walk down to the coffee shop or go to the library or go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, and spark a conversation with somebody.
yeah.
I think it's important to remember that self-care is different for everyone. We talked earlier about the propensity to focus on self-care to get into a relationship and then neglecting it. We've talked about how people sometimes get into a relationship as something to kind of fulfill themselves. And I think what the healthiest point of view is just to view self-care as a normal component in your life, as normal as going to work, shopping for groceries, making sure you're scheduling me time, just like Jen said. We schedule time for everything else. Make sure you're scheduling time for yourself in your calendar. Make it happen. Make it a priority. It's definitely something that's important for your health and for the health of your relationship, not just romantically, but people you work with, your friends, your family. Giving that balance and making sure that you're paying attention to the needs that you have is only going to make those relationships better. So you want to view your self-care time as a responsibility you owe to yourself. If you know how to take care of your own needs, you can better understand and attend to the needs of others. And just remember, Jen said striving for perfection. That's not always realistic. So you don't have to be perfect to be worth loving. You're already worthy. Just go invest in yourself. A little self-care can go a long way, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So once again, I want to thank you so much, Jen, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
If you could remind our listeners where they can find information about you, where they can listen to your podcast.
They can follow me on Instagram at JZ Beauty and the Beast and go to my website, embrace-amazing.com, and all the info's on there.
Recent rebrand on the website?
A little bit.
I noticed.
And I can't believe we didn't even talk about jujitsu, really. But
Oh my God.
I just always obviously talk about it, but that's one of the best forms of self-care, just saying. And it's great for relationships.
It
Ooh.
is?
There too.
To take
Oh,
classes
yeah.
together?
So I
If you
used to,
both train, and you're in like an argument, and Jay and I always joke about it, but it's like set a timer, roll for it. There you go.
So my ex-husband and I used to take
In
a boxing
gi or out
class.
of gi?
I'm a gi lover.
Okay. It's good for the throws and the rolling.
Just saying.
You got to have the gi.
We used to take a boxing class and spar every Saturday, and it was the best. It was the best therapy we ever had. Like
go.
our
Yeah.
therapist was great, but like being able to beat each other up legally and not really beat each other up was so cathartic.
Yes,
it was
it's
so
an
good.
amazing thing.
Yeah, it was
So.
great.
Jenna, we should go to Jen to take jujitsu.
Oh my!
taught by her.
Together,
I think so.
and then we can beat each other. Oh yeah, let's do that.
You should do it. I should totally. This is the thing. I need to have you guys on the podcast, which is now at my shop, and there are jujitsu mats right there, so we can do.
let's
We can do a private
it's
jujitsu
on.
session.
And then podcast
And
about
then
it.
Oh my
podcast.
God, that
I
would be
love
so
it.
There we go.
great.
We
Just
are
don't
in.
hurt me.
Oh,
I won't. I
Don't you worry.
promise.
Okay.
You're in good hands with Allstate.
I'll be there. He'll be
Okay,
fine. He'll be
okay,
fine.
good.
It'll be
And I'm already afraid of her, if we're being honest. So All right. So thank you so much again, Jen, for joining us. Guys, if you want to find out more about Menage-A-Pod, head over to our Instagram at Menage-A-Podcast, where you'll find our link tree that includes links to our Facebook group, Twitter account, website, top episodes, and more. I say it every week. Join the group. I don't have to come find you to make you do this. Join the group. Finally, a quick thank you to everyone who makes this show happen. Wonderful guests like Jen, my lovely co-host Jenna, me because I'm great, and you all for listening to the show. Until next time, remember to share us in your IG stories, retweet us, share our Facebook posting, and tell every single person you know about Menage-A-Pod. And of course, good luck out there, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.